All right. Peace and greetings, YouTubers. So welcome to another edition of In the News. Let's just jump right into it. Now, Virginia, listen, I got to start with y'all since y'all are just down the street and across the bridge. What's going on with y'all, Governor? Ralph Northam, what you doing, man? What you doing, Ralph? Like, listen, I don't know if you've all been paying attention to the story since it blew up in the weekend, but Ralph Northam has an entire wave of smoke blowing in his direction. And I mean, it's a whole firestorm, and he doesn't want any of that smoke. Probably because the smoke reeks of fumes of burning crosses, and if we want to be honest, he probably struck the match anyway. So there was a photo that leaked, and it's from his yearbook from his days back in med school. Now, mind you, the photo has his name in the description, and this photo has been around for years, and he never went out of his way to dispute that it wasn't him in the photo. And so, magically, this photo comes out, and in the photo, you see a man in blackface, you see another man standing next to him in a Klan outfit. And of course, the photo brings all this controversy. Everybody's flipping out. His fellow Democrat colleagues are like, oh, you got to step down. You're making the party look bad. We got to think about 2020, this, that, and the third. Not in this era, blah, 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 blah. And so Ralph Northam gets his team together, and they come out and release this really diplomatic statement. And it's, oh, I apologize, because he apologized for being in the photo. I apologize. This was an era of my past, and I've learned from my mistakes, and I've moved on, and now we must move on together to make Virginia a better this and this for America, and praise the Beatles and all the other stuff they always say to get everybody back on the good side. And so, didn't quite work. Everybody was like, nah, this one's a little bit harder. We just can't turn a cold shoulder to this one, because wait a minute, like the Klan and blackface together, a 2-for-1 special? Not right before Black History Month. And so people start calling for him to resign and to step down and everything like that. And at the same time, people are looking at the Lieutenant Governor, Justin Fairfax, who happens to be a black man, and they're like, this would be a great opportunity for Virginia to have their first black governor. This would be a great Black History Month and everything like that. But then there's some magical controversy that jumps out with Justin Fairfax too, which I'll get to in a second. So anyway, Ralph Northam was like, wait a minute, I ain't stepping down. I ain't no punk. So literally the next day, he was like, I was just playing. It wasn't even me in the picture. I don't even know what y'all talking about. I don't even know what that's from. That's some error right there. That could have been anybody, but it ain't me. So I'm not stepping down. I'll still be here. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. And of course, the story's just been going and going, but there's so many questions to be had. You know what I mean? Like, one question I have is to the med school. I'm like, so y'all this is what y'all have in y'all yearbooks, and this is what y'all are proud of? You know what I mean? Like, this is what y'all got going. And then I'm looking at Ralph Northam like, if this is a picture that was not you, but it's a Klan dude and blackface, and you were just comfortable with somebody stating that was you for 30 plus years, I mean, you were good with that? You were cool with that? I said, oh, okay. And I think what makes me worry is you've seen the reports and you see the stories of so many black women who have issues, especially with things like childbirth. You see the mortality rate. So many black women who die giving birth, or the baby dies during birth, or they both die during birth and everything like that. And then it's like, well, when you look at it and you're seeing who the doctors are, if these two are examples of the doctors that are helping them, you're kind of like, oh, that's not a good look. It's a little creepy. And some people are like, oh, don't give him such a hard time. That was the way of the era back then. And I'm like, it was 1984. Thriller was out. Listen, my mom and dad had already met at the club at this point. I was just a few years away, so this wasn't that long ago. Like, I could see if this was a picture that surfaced from like 1946, 1951. I'll even let it slide up to like 1963, and I'd say, okay, they were racist, just like many of the politicians and people in office, but you know what? That is more reflective of that time, but it's the 80s. MTV was out, all right? Madonna was already humping the stage on the floor and stuff like that, and so I don't want to hear it. The Cosby Show was out. Get out of my face with that. So they can keep all of that. And it's just interesting, because the other part I wonder is with that picture, because look at the picture. First of all, they're just having a good time. They're smiling. First of all, I'm not trying to be a terrible person, but all the people I know in med school are miserable right now because it's so much work. They ain't getting no sleep. They overworked. Everybody's hairline is way back here. Hair thinning out, receding, balding in the back and everything like that. Folks then gained 30 and 40 pounds from stress, and they're just living it up, having a great time in med school. What school y'all at? What work y'all doing? All right, who y'all cutting open next week? But anyway, I want to know, like, in the picture, I just want to know, for my own personal gratification, was he the guy in the blackface, or was he the one in the Klan outfit? Because if he's the guy in the blackface to me is saying, okay, that's the more, we just straight disrespectful and we're going to mock y'all because we think y'all are stupid and this, that, and third, and it's just fun to do that. And then the Klan outfit is more like, not only do we hate y'all, but we'll be violent. We hate you even more. So it's like, okay, they're both terrible, but I that Klan one it's just a little higher on my scale of offensiveness. So I'm just like, what y'all doing? You know what I mean? And then I want to also question, like, to the people who ran against both Justin Fairfax and Ralph Northam. I'm like, who was on y'all campaign team? The first thing they normally do when people have these campaigns is they dig up all the dirt on somebody. You know, when you run for office, that's why I would never run, because too much stuff. I have too much of a footprint on the internet to ever run for anything, because they would just start digging up all kinds of stuff and putting it out there, especially when they find this channel. But, you know, when you run for office, they find everything. You know, if you went to a restaurant and you had a $2 tip on a $120 bill, that person's gonna be out. And then somehow that person is gonna be somebody whose mom died in the Iraq war, and they had to work at the restaurant to finish paying their college tuition, and the little money that they had from tuition, they split between tuition and taking care of the sick grandpa, you know, and then that'll be a commercial and everything like that. They're gonna find the person that you pushed down the slide in 3rd grade and their knee got messed up and they never were able to quite recover, so they weren't able to compete in the Olympics like they wanted to since they were 3. And like, they find everything on you and they dig it all up. So I'm trying to figure out, how did you miss a whole blackface yearbook photo? Who misses that? How does that happen? They need to find. I'd be so pissed at whoever ran against Ralph Northam in Virginia. I'd be pissed. Like, really? And then as far as the Justin Fairfax thing, the only bit that's suspicious about that is that it's so conveniently brought up right here and right now, right as this is happening. I'm like, okay, so I think that's Ralph Northam's team digging up the stuff on Justin Fairfax. And so it's really interesting. I swear, white people, some of y'all, the things that y'all do for leisure, it's all like, goodness. I'm just saying, when I'm with my friends and it's just us together, we're not doing whiteface, which isn't really a thing. But hell, I got acne too. Ain't nothing going on in this face. I got to keep it clear and keep it clean. But, you know, we're doing things like having arguments about whether reasonable doubt is better than Illmatic. You know, we're doing things like that. Karaoke or if Prince or Michael is better. That's what we're doing. You know, we're not thinking let's figure out how we can piss off white people and put on whiteface or do something crazy. As a matter of fact, y'all don't even come up in my conversation unless we're talking about something structural. But it is what it is. So we will see how this rolls out. That's funny though. They really said it was from that time of the era. I was like, it was 84. Like, my mom and dad had already met at the club by then. Like, that's not long ago. What y'all talking about? I'm only saying that because my mom just told me a story about how her and my dad met. So I've been on that all week. Anyway, we'll see how this unfolds. By the way, like, Ralph, you don't got to worry about running for nothing else in Virginia. At this point, he's just going to have to go ahead and just own his racism and run on that and just go ahead and win the rest of the other vote, because you done lost the black vote. Unless he's going out of his way to do reparations, he don't got to worry about running for nothing else. You done messed that up. You know, like, jeez, 2-for-1 special. Now, Ralph, tell us which one you were in the picture. Were you in the Klan outfit or were you in the blackface? I just want to know. We still going to be pissed off either way and look at you like you're crazy, but goodness. I mean, yeah, you better roll out some reparations. I mean, you're going to have to do some free college tuition for every black student in that state, everything, because nobody is going to trust you in a position of governorship for the well-being of everybody in that state if it shows that you already have a bias and a prejudice against a whole group of people. I think not. Happy Black History Month. And then there's Liam Neeson. And, you know, sometimes we don't always have to volunteer information if nobody asks. You know what I mean? Sometimes when you're putting out voluntary information that nobody asked for, you gotta think, is this gonna be something that's gonna bite me in the behind later? Am I biting my foot off? Is this something that will be a career killer? Is this something that will haunt me 20 years down the line? Is this something that will not just be able to blow over in a day? You know what I mean? And so I guess he didn't think about that, and he was kind of on the same tip as Ralph back in Virginia, and was like, oh, it'll blow over, but it didn't quite do it. And so he had a relative who was raped, and the relative had stated that the person who did the attack was somebody black. And so he talks about how he just went out on this whole tirade looking for somebody black to go fight because he had all this anger. And so this was the quote from the interview. "My immediate reaction was," Neeson said before pausing, "I asked, did she know who it was? No. What color were they? She said it was a black person." Neeson said he then went up and down areas with a baton, hoping he'd be approached by somebody. Neeson admitted he's ashamed by his actions. Now, this is the part that got me right here. This part got me in my spirit. "I'm ashamed to say that, and I did it for maybe a whole week, hoping some," gestures with air quotes in his fingers, "black bastard would come out of a pub and have a go at it with me about something, you know, so that I could," he paused again, "kill him." According to the interviewer, Neeson knows how shocking and appalling his story is. So, can we talk about the historical connotations that associate with that? Like, when you look at the history of something like Rosewood, that has Rosewood written all over it. We've talked about Rosewood a few times, and hell, there was even a movie about it, but that was a situation where the woman had been cheating on her husband anyway. Husband finds out, and instead of that, she pretty much says she was raped by a black guy, and they go and just kill all the black people in the town, burn the whole town down. And that's also somewhat rooted in what opened the doors for the Tulsa, Oklahoma riots as well. There's some bigger issues with that, but you know what I mean? Like, that's a problem. So you mean to tell me that, you know, somebody in your family gets raped. The description fits the description of, if we're just talking about race, fits the description of 39 million people who live in the United States. So you just said you just gonna go out and just fight anybody who looks like one of them 39 million people, huh? You just gonna go out with a baton. So whether it was some guy going to the ATM really quick or if somebody pushing the baby in the stroller, you was just gonna fight and pray that they fought you so you could kill them. And the other bit about that is, this is a rich white man. We know that rich white men, they can get away with a lot of things. You know, who's the dude from California where those 2 black gay men were found in his house dead, like within like a year or 2 span? I can't think of the dude's name. I'm gonna just post an article there. But you know, I don't think he's been charged yet. He's just kind of living his best life, and he got 2 dead people found in his house. You know what I mean? Like, that's the experience for a lot of folks. So the issue that I had with that was, let's just say he got in a situation, got in a fight with somebody, but that person kicked his behind and then he killed him. I bet you he'd still be walking free. You know, that's a problem. So he pretty much just let us know that he's racist and that he thinks all black people are rapists and super predators and everything like that. So, yeah, I don't even know why you shared that. Like, you ain't got to worry about me catching any kind of work you have out. That's all I'm saying. Like, that's a problem. You know, And as the victim of somebody who's been yanked out of the car by police because I fit the description of somebody else that was doing home invasions, you know, I just, not good, sir. Not good at all. You know, nothing like being met with a taser gun in your face and then dragged out the car and dragged out onto the sidewalk, and then you got to sit there for a few hours while the dogs are barking. It's a lot of fun. It's a great experience. You know, I'll be sure to tell it to my kids. Then you got Tekashi 6ix9ine, who recently pled guilty to the 9 counts that he was charged with. So now he's facing a mandatory minimum of at least 47 years. Now, they may chop some of it off if he continues to cooperate and tell on a few more people, but, you know, that's crazy. And I've talked about this before, so I'm not spending too much time on Tekashi 6ix9ine. But, you know, like I said before, you can call me insensitive, but I always say, if you're going to do something stupid, be smart about it. And unfortunately, he was not smart in a lot of the decisions that he made. And he continued to kind of troll. And when it was kind of evident that people were like, yo, you need to calm down because they're going to come after you. And he was still being all arrogant and I'm this, I'm that. Now look what happened. Look where that got you. And, you know, some people unnecessarily live hard lives when they don't have to. The thing that gets me with a lot of entertainers is that they're given an opportunity that many strive for and that many will never get. And they get an opportunity to, you know, create an art form that can reach millions and it can just grow into something that, you know, has no limitations. And they continue to just mess it up doing some dumb like, what are you doing, man? You know what I mean? So it's like you messed up what could have been great for you and for yours. And, you know, I'm not going to sit here and act like there aren't entertainers who don't come from a background where they had to sell drugs to get by or they had to be involved with gang violence to get by. But Tekashi wasn't one of them, in my opinion. And even if he was, it's like now that you have that opportunity to take care of your family, sometimes you got to cut ties with some things that are no longer there for you. And the reason I say that is, you know, as somebody who has a family that has a very vast background of experiences, you know, there's a bit of everything in my family, you know. I will never forget January of 2014. I had 4 relatives all die in the same 2-week span. It was like some retaliation gang crap back and forth. And it got so bad I had one cousin get killed at his own birthday party, you know, in front of his kids. And the thing about it is, what I've learned is that that's a lifestyle that many of the people who are in it don't even want to be in. You know, it's just a way to get by. Because you're constantly on edge, you're constantly paranoid, you constantly have to watch your back. You can't even trust people for too long because everything shifts, everything changes. And when you're talking about something like the drug trade, it's extremely competitive. And it's something that it's hard to age out of. You know what I mean? It's a very young, very instant, very quick, very fast turnaround time kind of lifestyle. You have to constantly just be on the edge. You have to constantly be in the know of everything. You have to keep your eye out on who's the distributor. You got to keep your eye out on which zones you can sell and which zones you're not selling and who's buying what, who's not buying something. You have to keep your eyes out for who may be an informer, who's trying to set you up, who's trying to kill you, who's trying to go after your kids, who's trying to go after your wife. You know, it's a whole lot. You got to keep an eye out on, make sure people don't know where your mom lives. You like, who wants to live like that if you don't have to? So when you get an opportunity to leave all that behind and start over, and do great for yours and your family and possibly bring up other people that you may have grown up with who want to get out of that as well, but you choose to saturate and sit in it. It's like, are you kidding me? And then there's 21 Savage, who was recently detained by ICE because his visa expired years ago and he's been living here with an expired visa. And mind you, I would have never known that he wasn't from here. You know what I mean? Like, I always thought he was from Atlanta, East Point. But, you know, apparently he was born in the UK. They said he may have lived on the island of Dominica. I'm not sure about that. I got to double check that. But, you know, I'm gonna be honest. The minute I first saw the story, the first thing I did was go back and watch any interview I saw. I was just trying to listen to the dialect and the vernacular and the accent to see if there was one at all. That's crazy. The thing about deportations that always kind of freaks me out is like, imagine what that's like where if you get deported to a place that you haven't been to since you were little, because he was brought to the United States as a child. And so, a lot of the deportations that happen with people who their families brought them over when they were really young, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years old. And then, they're 30, 40 years old and now they're being deported. I'm like, what's that experience like? Wow, that's crazy, And then I always wonder, like, when people get deported and they get sent back to the other country, is there like a program for them to get on their feet, or is it they just get dropped off from the little van or the bus and then they just walking with no money in their pocket and it's like, figure out life, make it work? I just wonder. Interesting though. I swear, they going after everybody who has a number in their name. So if you're an entertainer with a number, you better be in the house minding your business. I hope Andre 3000 is at home with the doors locked, watching Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood and eating vegan cereal or something. Because, man, they going after everybody. Crazy. And then Demi Lovato. Oh, Lord. Man. Y'all wouldn't let her be great that day, would y'all? Y'all said, nope, not on our watch. She tried to chime in because, everybody was posting the different memes. Because, of course, when you have a rapper who's made all these songs about this, that, and the third, and then it turns out you from the UK. Not against the people in the UK, but here, at least for me, when I think of the UK, I just think of polite people. Even though people in the UK can cuss you out clean, like they cuss you out like nobody's business. But I just think of manners and politeness and a nice, tranquil, spirited group of people who wander and good morning. That's what I always think of. Until I look at the history and forget that, Britain and colonized all but 22 countries in the world. But, it's hard to buy the whole street cred rapper thing after you done found out, wait a minute, you from where? It's like if I ever wanted to be a rapper and then you find out I'm from Washington State. I'll be like, hold up. Huh? Yeah, so even though Sir Mix-a-Lot is from my state, Baby got back, and I guess if you want to count Macklemore, but... that's kind of what it looks like. But no, Demi, it was like y'all had to remind her about her past and y'all wouldn't let it go. Reminds me of the time, like my mom one time lost her mind for some reason. I forgot to take the meat out the freezer, for dinner. She would not let it go the whole week. She kept bringing it up every 5 seconds. And then it got to the point where my little brother, because he's like 7 years younger than me, one time my mom was doing the laundry and she took out this t-shirt, and it was his t-shirt, but it was all ripped up and shredded. And my mom was like, boy, what did you do to this t-shirt? I'm buying you clothes and you done tore it up. And then he was like, mind you, he was like 7 or 8. He was like, I grew out of it. And for some reason, I thought that crap was so funny. I was over there dying. Oh! And my mom was like, oh, I know you ain't over there laughing, mister. I can't remember to take the meat out the freezer. Now we ain't got nothing to eat. And I'm like, that was last week. What are you talking about? Like, she brought that thing up over and over. So that was the first thing I thought of when I saw how folks just went in on Demi, yo. It got so bad, Demi got rid of her Twitter. She said, "To hell with y'all. I'm out." Like, wow, crazy, right? And then, by the way, we have a task, ladies and gentlemen. I know you guys see. There's the she's like a news columnist, opinionated reporter, the Tommy Lauren girl. It's like this blonde girl who's like extremely right-wing and just says every and anything offensive you can say to piss off everybody except for her own core demographic of followers. Listen, she's muted. We're muting her. So I need everybody, if you have Twitter or Instagram, block her so I can stop seeing her on the timeline. Stop retweeting her. Like, block her, mute her. We are not giving that girl any more energy because she's irritating. Because she also, what was funny, she made a post kind of mocking, that he was being deported and everything like that. And I'm like, really? And mind you, there's a video of her sitting there jamming to his music at the same time. But, she's canceled. We're canceling her. Like, stop giving her energy because her platform is continuing to grow because we continue to respond to everything that she does. So she's canceled. She's muted. If you see her, even if you don't follow her, which you should not, but block her ahead of time. Just block her, all her stuff. If enough of us block her, her traction will not circulate because I think most of the traction she is getting is from black folks who are pissed off at the things that she continues to say. So she got to go. She's just as annoying as that other girl, the blonde girl who always carries the guns everywhere. She goes to the puppy park and, she's standing next to the little baby pug and nobody's taking my gun. She can go too. And does she work? Does she have a job? Somebody look that up because all I see is she's constantly posting a picture of her with a gun somewhere. Where do you work at? I just want to know. Anyway, so there's that. Like, this is not how we're supposed to start Black History Month. You know what? As a matter of fact, switching gears here. 2 people I would like to shout out for Black History Month. I was trying to use people that are not normally in the mix. There's always Martin and Rosa and everybody like that, but I would like to expand. So Tim King, who is still alive, I would like to shout out. Now, he's out of Chicago. He went to Georgetown law school. He is the individual who opened all of the urban prep academies. And so that's the academy where you have like all of the young black males, and it's a 100% graduation rate, and 100% of the students end up going to a 4-year university or going off to college. So he's definitely getting a shout out because of all the work that he does in the community. So that's who I'm shouting out for Black History Month. And I'd also like to shout out who I don't think gets enough credit for her contributions to music, and that's Mary Clayton. Now, if you saw the 20 Feet from Stardom documentary on Netflix, I don't know if it's still on there. It was on like a few years ago, but she is one of the session singers. That's back when, when people would record albums and you'd have session singers as well to back you up, or background singers. She sang on a lot of pivotal songs that, made their mark in pop culture in American history, even though they're not really songs I would normally listen to, but like Sweet Home Alabama, Joe Cocker, With Little Help from My Friends. I think she gets the most accolades for her contribution to the Rolling Stones' Gimme Shelter. So she definitely gets a shout out. And I mean, she's worked with a bunch of other people as well. I think she also worked with Ike and Tina. And so, I don't think she gets her flowers enough. She's also still alive, by the way. So that's our Black History Month shout out. I just wanted to kind of shift the gears here because I'm like, these stories I'm covering, my God, like, is there anything good that happened this week? God. And then I did want to address one quick thing that kind of threw me for a whirlwind. There was an individual on social media who made a post and they're just talking about, black celebrities and how they're not really contributing to, things that help the community and this, that, and third, which I'm like, I agree to that aspect on a lot of things. But then they got to this bit where they were saying, they should invest in creating black-owned prisons, private prisons. And I'm like, wait, huh? Wait, whoa. That's not what we're doing. And so I think for them, they thought it was a good idea because they're like, oh, if it's black-owned, maybe the inmates would get treated better, this, that, and third. But the issue I have is, one, it's a private prison in a system that's already still corrupt. So, with this judicial system and you still have the school to prison pipeline and everything like that, that's kind of like saying, let's give a slave who picks cotton a brand new sack to hold the cotton in because they've been working so hard. So rather than them getting the cotton sack, now they have a silk one so they can be a little bit more comfortable while they still pick cotton. Like, that's what it reminds me of. So that's not really a great idea. Sorry. You go back to the drawing board on that one. I was like, you lost me. And even with the prison system, we saw what happened with the Brooklyn Metropolitan Detention Center and how they had no power and no heat for a week. And you realize how cold it was in pretty much the entire country all of last week, specifically the north central half of the country and the tri-state area and the mid-Atlantic region. So everything from like Wyoming over to New York and down to the Carolinas was extremely cold. There was negative wind chills, especially in New York. And so you had inmates in jail or in prison for a week with no heat, no electricity. You saw the protests outside. If you saw the clips where you hear like the banging and everything, where they're banging on the windows and everything as a sign of protest. These are real issues that are happening with the prisoners and everything like that. The irony of a siren while I'm talking about prisoners. I don't know if y'all can hear it. But, these are the real experiences and issues that are happening, and that's why I think prison reform is so important at this time. It's the thing that I have is like, people may say, well, they're criminals, that's what they get, but there's so many people in jail who have not even done things that they've done, and 90% of the people who are in prison took a plea deal anyway. And a lot of people who take plea deals, they didn't even do the crime that they were accused of doing. It's just like, by the time you go through the process, it's not even worth the hassle. A lot of people get these public defenders who don't even know their names, and then they show up to court, and it's like, okay, you can either face 20 years or you can just go ahead and say you did this, we can have you out of here in a year. What do you want to do? And so that's something to kind of think about as far as just the experiences that are going on. But I was like, a black-owned prison? What kind of... Listen, unless it's going to be some kind of situation where you did like a Pablo Escobar... Like, you remember, like, Pablo Escobar back in Colombia, he had so much going on. He was over there just terrorizing the whole government. He was like, okay, I know y'all want me to go to jail, so I'll do this. Here's the deal. I'm going to build my own prison because I'm sitting on hundreds of millions of dollars, and I'm going to build my own prison way off in the hills, and, y'all will leave me alone, and I'll stay in there for 5 years, and then I'll come back out. And the government said yes. And so he built like this whole shrine to himself, this nice house, pools and all kind of stuff, and gourmet chefs and all that. He was just in there chilling, like unless maybe that was the realm you were going for. But then again, the question becomes, well, what do you do with the person who went and shot and killed 30 people? Do they get to go to the nice, black enterprise estate prison too, or what? I don't know. But there's that. The last thing I wanted to talk about was Kristoff St. John, which, he recently was found dead. Unfortunately, I think he was only in his 50s too, which is absolutely crazy. And, they haven't released how he died. And so, some people are speculating. They think it's suicide, and some think it may be drugs, alcohol. But, it just goes to show you, like, man, as we get older, you really become mortal. Like, I'm starting to really see it now, because I'm getting to that age where you're starting to see your friends and stuff. Friends are getting cancer, or, friends are just unexpectedly dying, and things are happening. And I'm like, wow, life is crazy, which is like, you really got to live your best life while you're here, because you just never know what tomorrow brings. And, as far as the speculations of it being suicide, I don't live in this man's head. I'm not trying to piece together that experience. And I mean, I've talked about my thoughts on people who take their lives. And I did that in the video with the woman who, she was the fashion designer and she took her life. And I mean, I spent a good 10, 15 minutes talking about it. I don't remember what video it is, but it's one of these in the news episode. So just dig back till you find it. But, best wishes to his family on that. That's really, really tough. It's so tough to lose a loved one, especially when you were just talking to them the day before and everything seemed fine. But I was reading on his past, and he had a son who took his own life, and they were actually suing the institution that the son had been staying in because they felt like they had neglected the son. And then the father as well had, from what I understand, or he had some other things that he had been working on. But I don't live in his house. I don't live in his mind. I'm just reporting on what I read. But it's tough. You never know what somebody's going through, which is why I try my best to be as tranquil and cordial to people that I interact with, even when I'm pissed off with folks, because I don't know where people's minds are. And we're living at a time where people are stressed out. You know what I mean? Like, finances aren't good for some people. The climate of the country is trash right now. Some people don't feel accomplished, and especially with millennials. I think that's going to be something. As millennials continue to get older, and Generation Z, you're going to see a lot of people who, I'm not going to say are killing themselves, but really just are not content internally because of just everything that's going on around them and all the pressures of society, and the fact that social media now makes us live our lives where we compare everything we do to somebody else. And then we forget that what that somebody else is doing is only what they want to share with us. You're only going to post the good things. You're not posting the bad things. And so a lot of people are validating themselves by, what somebody else is doing. Now, I'm not saying that for Kristoff St. John. I'm just talking about in general. But, life is crazy. It really is. But, anyway, I didn't mean to end on such a somber note. But, share your 2 cents. We'll be back later in the week. And anyway, I'm out. Subscribe.